Right then, welcome everyone to the joint Nexodus and NCG webinar around the kind of 24/7 workplace. We've got some great guests today. We've got Andrea Perotti, Managing Director of Expansive. We've got John Allen, Digital Director at Bruntwood. And we've got Jane Sartin, who everyone will know from the Flexible Space Association. I'm going to keep my intro very light. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got a lot of work to do in this industry as well about monetizing these spaces outside of the traditional 9 to 5. I've seen some amazing examples of it at Aldgate Tower, where we're based. There's a language school here now that runs from sort of 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. almost every single night. And there are honestly days where the language school is busier than it is during the day. I've got other examples of friends of mine that have started up a software business which matches spaces to requirements rather than just, you have to rent a space and see what you can do with it. They've got everything from renting a barber's for a music video to renting a school for a party, all these things, and it just matches kind of where you are to your requirements rather than the kind of having to mold that space to you. It's a different way of doing things. So really interesting. I'm hoping everyone enjoys it today. I'm going to hand straight over to Andrea. We're going to run for an hour, and we're going to have a Q&A at the end. We all believe the Q&A will be very interesting, very interesting. But please listen to the guys. They've got some great experience. And yeah, I'll let you go, Andrea, and let you introduce yourself. Okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'm delighted to be here. Amy, are you going to pop up our slides or? That's okay. I can go.
There we go. Your slide's up.
Oh, it is up. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not seeing it. Fantastic. Great. Well, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. I'm joining you from Fairfield, Connecticut. So I appreciate the late time in your day for this session. So I'm going to turn this a little bit on its head and, extrapolate from the 9 to 5. It's really, how do we double down on generating the most revenue per square foot or per square meter as humanly possible, while best serving the evolving need of the hybrid worker? So I think we'll all agree that hybrid work is here to stay. Many of us have been advocating for it for decades. The challenge is that the world is settling into what hybrid work means. So the enterprise customer and every single human who's making that decision to walk into an office or not every single day is choosing where, when, and how to work, and those rules of engagement are changing. So the first layer of my plan is really to double down on what we know. I always go with what we know first, and then I always test into ideas next. So what do we know? We know what people are buying right now. And so what I want to do is talk about what they're buying and how we can tweak what they're buying in order to generate more revenue during our open hours, as well as extending those opportunities beyond the opening hours. So number one is to take a nod from gyms. So gyms, whether you're an Equinox member, which I am, and you're paying a couple of $100 a month, or whether you're an Edge member, it's an American brand, I think, where my children are, and they're paying $10 a month, dollars a month. Either way, these membership programs are gauged or priced out, and the packages are priced out to monetize 24 hours, right? Knowing that the peak time for a gym is between 7 a.m. and 10, and again between 3 and 7. So what do? They use data like data that NCG provides through Nexodus and their various other partners to determine when that fluctuality is and when the peak hours are, to create a foundational subscription program. So this is what I'm suggesting. Number one, a foundational subscription program that meets the needs of everybody while providing upcharges in order to access those peak times. What does that mean to us? So we have co-working memberships. The first thing that we want to do is drive more monthly recurring membership revenue via subscriptions. We have co-working memberships. We should have dedicated desk memberships. and we have meeting memberships. I don't know that a lot of people are doing that. A lot of companies are doing meeting room memberships. In addition, depending upon the type of business that you have, we're going to want to have networking memberships and also content memberships. So that means by introducing these 5 additional or adding on the 3 additional monthly recurring membership streams, you are not relying upon the 9 to 5, yet you are monetizing 24/7. You're using data to understand how you can oversubscribe, and you're using data to understand when you can charge an additional peak fee over the regular fee. Number 2, reimagine your product line. So across the globe, I'm seeing that providers are offering Workspace with flexible terms at a great location and everybody right now is doubling down on price. Everybody, in other words, discounting. So if we're truly to meet the needs of the ever-evolving hybrid worker, we have to reimagine what we're offering. So I'm taking inspiration for this example from a conversation I had last night with my husband, where he was talking about Nestle Waters. Nestle Waters has thousands of trucks. They pay for leases on thousands of trucks. Those trucks are monetized or generating revenue for Nestle Waters 9 to 5. What do they do with this fleet after hours to monetize that asset after hours? Well, number 1, they changed their routing and delivered to different customers after hours. And number 2, they changed the configuration of their truck in order to provide more delivery options by adding in refrigerators and things like that. So what does that mean for us? I'll turn my page here. I'll give you an example, and I'll use a London example. We had a couple of floors in this pretty extraordinary building that we happened to do a little work with NCG and Exodus on that one. I can give other examples of other partners, but they did a tremendous job. And what we did was we launched with a certain product line at a certain price point. And we utilized the data, and we had our shopping cart, and we had our e-commerce platforms, and we set up a whole infrastructure, and we said, we're not yielding the results that we want, are we? And so we revamped everything from the products we offered, looking at these 4 walls and recognizing that we had kind of handcuffed ourselves in terms of our product offering. We revamped our product offering, we revamped our pricing strategy, we layered in subscription products, and we revamped the customer path. We thought people would buy when they landed on our website. They weren't going to buy. They needed to inquire and find out first. And so as a result, we layered in dedicated desks. The big product, by the way, and the brokers and the channel partners have to get on board with selling that. You may want to incentivize them to sell the dedicated desk because we did and it worked. We layered on new membership programs. So new membership programs, meaning there was a client, an enterprise customer who wanted to have 50 people meet 1 day a week in the open space. Okay, we'll do that. And we created, you get more revenue from that one subscription than you would for any 10-person office deal. The other thing that we did was we layered on a co-working subscription program that said, listen, we don't care if you're coming in 3 days or 5 days, it's the same price. And if you want to come in during peak hours, there's a little bit of an extra fee. And I'll get into discounting strategies in a moment, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to cannibalize your paying customers by discounting and having them come during other days. They're ready, willing, and able to pay that price. And sometimes when discounting, you cannibalize that revenue stream. And then we layered in meeting room subscription products. A lot of providers don't have meeting room subscription products. And so what you want to do is you want to bundle up your meeting room subscription products so that and knowing that there's not going to be 100% utilization, you want to bundle up those meeting room subscription products at a lower discounted rate. And then you want to be able to sell for time essentially that's not being utilized while providing an incredible value proposition to your customer. Now, you do need a partner, a technology partner, in order to do that so that you can track hours and you can track utilization. Number one, so that you can make sure that people aren't overutilizing the hours, but number two, so that you can make sure that your pricing strategy is appropriate. Finally, two more things. Discounting strategies. There are some products that you can use discounting to drive and increase revenue beyond the 9 to 5, like day passes. But there are some products where you're going to discount your product, meaning meeting rooms for the hour, not meeting room subscriptions, but meeting rooms for the hour. I have found that discounting meeting rooms is not a way, regardless if it's 9 to 5 or after hours, is not a way to generate more bookings or more revenue. In fact, discounting meeting rooms often leads to the same people who were buying before, buying at half price and decreasing revenue. And finally, repositioning. We need to look at our category and we need to think, if we're selling event space, we have Expansive has a building in Austin. I just went to that event space where we opened a beer garden. It's an outdoor space and we have an atrium. And we had a huge relaunch event and there were wedding planners there. There were caterers there. There were bands there. There were everything that you can imagine there to hold an extraordinary event for a consumer, not for a business. But guess what? We had to, I didn't do it, but our marketing person and our sales team who run the events product named the venues, the Hideaway. They branded the venue so that it felt like a consumer venue and not a workplace venue. And they priced it to be consumer friendly. And so if you are going to use meetings and events, and you should, because you can generate 10, 20, 30,000 dollars for a single meeting event, then what you need to do is repackage that product so that when you're going to the meeting and event planner, when you're going to the event broker, when you're going to the consumer or the bride and groom who want to hold their wedding, they're not feeling that they're having their wedding or their event or their offsite at an office building. That means when you have your description on your on the broker site, you can't say a Class A building located in blah, blah, blah. You got to say, this is a glorious event space, whatever consumer language that we want to use. And finally, if you're going to do this, test in, run everything by the numbers, use your technology, establish what success looks like, establish your KPIs, don't be afraid of the numbers, and then use your technology in order to guide the way and evolve your process. Because we're all discovering, if you're not using your data, then you're going to fail.
It's a bit of a masterclass there, Andrea.
Yeah, that's all right.
Thank you for that.
Minutes.
I hope everyone was taking notes, because that's very, very good. Just a question for me on that. Are you, outside of, I love the piece about branding and calling things something lovely, so people think they're getting a different package. Uncommon here are very, very good at that, as we know in the UK.
Yeah.
Are you advocating for, if you can use the data properly, surge pricing, like live surge pricing? Do you think that's a step too far? Where does it stop? Is it going to change if that's if I'm coming into the office already in the morning and it's very busy? Is my price going to go up when we get there with technology? Where do you land?
I love this. 20 years ago, we said that we were going to launch co-working so that it could be as transactional as a hotel. And everybody thought we were out of our minds. In fact, I was at a conference 2 years ago in London, the London Co-working Conference, where I reiterated that, and everybody said, nobody's going to buy products sight unseen. So we're there, right? Technology has enabled it. Mindset shifts has enabled it. Surge pricing, I think 100% we're going to get there. Not yet. Not yet. We have to get over some incredible hurdles. But of course, yes, we'll model after airlines and hotels and cars and all that kind of stuff.
You see it now in the pricing for when people come in from abroad to come to London. They're paying Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes 3 times what they're paying to stay in a Liverpool Street 5-star at the weekend as at the weekend. So it's perfectly possible. It's been perfectly possible. Okay.
It will
Thank you for
happen.
that.
Yes.
Oh yes,
Thank-
it's
Mhm.
happening. It's happening.
It's
Right.
happening.
Thanks for that, John. Over to you. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Andrea. That was a perfect, hopefully a perfect segue into what I'm about to talk about, which is when we think about monetizing beyond the 9 to 5. We also need to we've obviously got to think that we're monetizing in the 9 to 5, and maybe there's a challenge there about are we actually optimizing that, and if we're not, there's maybe a conversation about are we talking about a shift from 9 to 5. Whether that's the case or not, I think one of the things I believe the industry needs is a change of mindset, a big idea. And for us, for me, that big idea was shifting away from B2B centric and property centric, space centric conversations to conversations with customers and, more importantly, end users. So there is a challenge in the industry in general, which is that in most cases, unless you're doing a one-to-one transaction, it's a small business kind of membership subscription, you actually don't know who is using the space you have, and you don't necessarily know who's in it in real time. And that's a particular an acute situation if you're selling service space suites or leased office space. We do all of this, by the way. So we have this challenge, which we think is representative for us, but it's also within the industry, which is we don't really know who uses our space. And so that gives us a challenge. And the challenge is we therefore need to shift from having relationships with business owners about workspaces to having relationships with people, not business people, just people, about what they do and where they are. And in other words, what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand how we can explicitly monetize opportunity, but first by building relationships. And so rather than thinking immediately about how you go, I've been fortunate enough to work in lots of different industries, including travel and airlines and retail. And in lots of these spaces, as long as you've got an essential requirement within your funnel, you can charge whatever you like for it. So if you've booked an airplane seat and you've paid a low value for it, but you've now got to actually book the seat on the plane, rather than giving you that for free, I can charge you for it. And that feels like a great monetization opportunity. The thing we've got to be careful of in our industry is jumping to those places. And Andrea just mentioned, indicated some of those in the previous conversation. If you jump too early to try and monetize, what will happen is we don't need any more reasons to put people off coming to the office. So really what we're trying to do is build one-to-one personal relationships with real people in real time, so we can understand ultimately what products to put in front of them that are appropriate to their need. And if you're like us and you sell a big range of products, and we sell everything from literally virtual office desk subscriptions right the way through to you want the whole building, we'll lease the whole thing to you. We'll do all of those things, but in all cases we want to have that one-to-one conversational companion relationship between you as you move through the buildings in the workspace, or the space, because it's not always workspace. And as you do that, you leave a digital footprint, and we measure that digital footprint. And I think that's the key. And it's one of the things Andrea's just mentioned is that this idea of measurement. So we know we underutilize in some areas, and we know we've oversold in other areas. But we don't have a single place, or we didn't have a single place where we kept and systemized all of our inventory. And so the key part of this is build a relationship with end users. And to do that, you really need to onboard the concepts of CRM, and you need to think about your digital touch points. And if they're not digital touch points, you need to make them digital touch points. And that brings you to the next key area, which is you have to systemize your inventory. And for many of us, we operate in a semi-systemized or multi-system inventory model, i.e. we can all say, I've got good systems across my business, But what we often can't say is, I've got one system where I can find all my inventory. And the reason that we want to do that is threefold. If your inventory is systemized and you've got good CRM relationships, it's systemized relationship with a customer, you can bring those two things together. So you can bring a relationship, you can put product in front of people, or you can retrospectively look at people's behavior and say they are appropriate to product, or of course you can combine products to make to be more attractive to people depending on time of day, time of place, etc. The other thing it does from a systemization point of view is it makes it self-service. Now, what I am not suggesting, which Andrea beautifully outlined earlier, was that everybody, no matter if it's someone looking for a lease or someone looking for a service space, or even someone looking for an event space, we don't expect them to go online, book it themselves, turn up, self-serve into the building, and it's not going to happen. But what does happen is it allows, whether it's a facilitated experience through our own staff and colleagues, through partners, or via the individuals themselves who are acting on behalf of their company or themselves as individuals, they all get the same continuous experience. And what it means is that, again, as a systemized process, you know exactly where those people are in the journey. You also are measuring everything they do. And if you're measuring everything they do, when you make mistakes, and you will make lots of mistakes, when you make those mistakes, you can then measure, learn, correct, and move on. And what that allows us to do is then start thinking about how we start to build a lot more, and that's my sort of third area of systemization. It allows you to then build recipes for new product. So what was a meeting room is now, in a building that has catering facilities in the evening, is now an evening class training school. We turn pre-sold car parking spaces that belong to offices in the normal working week. We allow those to be sold out to people who need them in the evenings and the weekends, even though they've already been sold. If you've systemized your process, there's even an opportunity to pass some of that revenue through to the people who may have already previously pre-purchased that item. So the idea of even revenue share and those sorts of things, there are also other products. So the idea here is basically build a really strong relationship with people, and if they are using a systemized process, everything they do becomes measurable. Once it's measurable, those contact points then become other places that you will have further relationships. The wow moments here are small but really significant. The wow moments are things like being able to say, you've just arrived, your meeting room is about to expire, your car parking space is going to run out, and telling people about those things. That's the value exchange that people will happily give you information and share and use your app or web. They will happily do that in exchange for good information in real time. And those then allow you to optimize those products that are specifically are used again, either again out of hours or in those, if you like, dead bands that exist outside normal office hours. It's when we think about and when we think about sort of spaces and places, and this is all, you know, the whole reservations engine piece is really important. When we think about spaces and places, most of us are sitting in organizations that have built a business model on the basis of approximately 40 hours of usage a week. There's 4.5 times that many hours in a week that we can be going after, and there's 2.5 times that many hours if we just do evenings and weekends as well. And this is the point about, you know, the non-9 to 5. Actually, in many cases, it's spreading out what we do in the day or moving it from the day to the evening, making that yoga class, making that networking event in your building, making the gym classes part of a membership scheme. Even if you're not charging for those to start with, that gives you an opportunity to give them away alongside full paid products. So avoid discounting, give away at extras, and measure the success. And as that success comes through, then you can take a decision on whether or not you should charge. And as we were talking about before, it's not necessarily surge pricing, but it's optimal pricing. So at certain points, you may still give. We all know that space on Fridays and Mondays in the UK is it. We've got plenty to give away, and give away we will, because but we'll give it to people who are paying for product in the middle of the week, and that way we hopefully bring people in, and that will in itself will help with the utilization of the space. And if we reach a point where either at evenings or on the Fridays that we're seeing overutilization of space, then we'll shift to a charging model, or we'll add in a fair usage model, or a credit kind of model. And again, the only way you can do that is if you've systemized your inventory. So that's my big piece. I think it drives towards the whole point of this is it tends to drive towards, as Andreas already said, memberships and recurring revenue. The idea of buying into things where you get other things added in, a kind of freemium kind of service can be layered on. And I think the other thing that we all need to think about is when we think about the user rather than the space, the minute we do that and the minute we start to build that relationship with them, then we are transcending the spaces. We are no longer limited to a relationship which has to exist within a physical place. And that changes our relationship with the customer, and it brings further opportunity. Some of that will come as monetization. Some of that will come as a way of managing opportunity that will monetize later in the future, or it will throw out data that will help us just plan and organize our businesses better.
So thank you for that, John. I'm just going to go on to one point, your kind of systemization of engagement. We all understand there'll be software and platforms and all sorts behind that, but what you're describing there, it kind of feels, high-end retail does this very well, very high-end retail. High-end hotels do this very, very well. Actually, I think almost all hotels do it pretty well. And then some of the best enterprises in the world internally, you're almost talking about a sort of IT support engagement model of touch points of how impressed have they been with the service, how quickly do things get replaced, all that satisfaction piece. Why so well in those industries? Why not here? Is it because we haven't had to try yet? Why not come across, considering that it's the same fundamental problem?
So it's actually the same challenge all businesses have with all systems.
Yes.
In any industry, and that is nearly every business in the world. No, I will rephrase it. Every business in the world has yet to complete its integration strategy or its systemization of its portfolio. And if you don't, you've got two choices. You either put everything into one system, which is quite dangerous because it creates a model in which you're very restricted as a business, or you buy lots of different systems and you integrate them together. And
I've got an example for you.
Absolutely. The reality is, the large businesses have recognized that in order to recognize a customer as a single entity, you have to integrate. And the reason that high-end retail and high-end hospitality does this very well is because the customer is absolutely central to this, and the customer is a person. And traditionally, we've looked at customers as B2B. Now, in some cases, small B2B, so that's still a named individual, but we still treat it as a B2B experience. And the reality is it's a person in that space. And if we want to extend this and remember, a person moves from acting as in a working capacity to acting in a social capacity while they're sitting at their desk. So why not do that while they're in the same building? And it's that sort of understanding the customer to that degree, centralizing the information around them, and really focusing on making sure you've got one view of your inventory and one view of your customer. That fundamentally is where those high-end businesses do it well. But it's a mindset rather than a specific system issue.
Yeah, as running a growing business and a startup, I can tell you it's very difficult. Even when you buy the same platform, Freshdesk, for example, you buy their Fresh Sales platform, they don't actually speak to each other from the same business. So it's a stress people building the software. So sorry, Jane, apologies, we're around a bit there chatting away. Over to you to give us the view from the kind of the whole industry as such.
Thank you. Yes, I think in my position, I'm lucky enough to get into lots of flexible workspaces of all different types, from single site business centres up to the largest operators, and everyone is doing things a bit differently, which is always interesting. I think my starting point is that it's a bit of a myth that we were ever all working from 9 to 5:30 Mondays to Fridays. There's obviously been a huge number of stories across the globe on how suddenly we're all working from home post-pandemic, and the working life has changed, and that hasn't really been the case at all. And I've been working from home to a lesser or greater degree probably over the last couple of decades of my career, and technology, of course, has made that easier. It also means that we're followed around by our work on a regular basis as well. I thought that there was a survey published earlier this month by Landmark, and it was looking at the business style barometer was the title, and there were a number of areas covered, and they found that 51% of those surveyed remain tied to their traditional working day, but of course that means that nearly half aren't. So the way that people work is changing, and it's not just within those 9 to 5:30 hours. The location also seems to make a big difference, and in the north of England, 25% don't have fixed working patterns and and they vary their days in the office, whereas in London that only applies to 7%. And I guess that, without seeing that was behind that data, my speculation would be that's people that are fixed going in on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, whatever, but they have a very fixed routine to it. I would say that many operators are increasingly reporting to me that they're finding Mondays a lot busier, and I think that's my experience as well. And I often don't go into the office on a Monday myself, and do work from home, or I go off elsewhere. But on occasions when I do go into our office, which is in a business park, so pretty much people do need to drive to it, and the car park looks pretty similar to it and busy as it does on other days of the week. So I think we are seeing some changes now, and people are settling down into a bit more of a pattern, and expectations are changing as well. I think as we move on to the next point of utilising flexible offices a bit more flexibly, as we were in the pandemic, I think there was a lot of concern that businesses were only wanting to be in offices a number of days a week, and they couldn't, they didn't want to be paying as they had been for 5 days a week in the office, and operators were worrying about how they were going to address that problem. Flexible Space Association ran a lot of roundtable meetings during the pandemic to get people together, and that was certainly a big topic of conversation. But I think from that initial panic of help, how are we going to do this and still carry on making money, I think people have realised that they can adapt in different ways. One of our member companies, Desk Lodge in Bristol, has a product that's they very much defined for that, and offers a private office for 1, 2 or 3 days a week, but treating those customers just as they do any others, and they're part of the community. They have access if there are events going on. They can turn up at events, and but they get the private office for a shorter number of days of the week, and potentially just for days as well. And a lot of companies are offering day offices, which again offers that private space. That co-working space works for a lot of people, but not for everybody. And that, again, membership schemes as well, which are increasingly commonplace. And it also, all of those things introduce people to office space that maybe they'll go on and take a whole office. So I think that's the other aspect. It's good promotion of the services as well, even if you're only using a couple of days of co-working space a month to start with. Maybe you'll end up in a private office. Events are clearly becoming much more embedded into the way many flexible workspaces operate, and those are often out of hours. Sometimes, obviously, I think probably particularly in hours, but it is becoming more common to run those outside of hours, where staffing and other aspects lean into that. I think one of our members, Clockwise, is particularly focused on doing an events program that runs that whole sphere, including evening events. With one of their venues on the edge of London, Bromley, they've just recently opened space there with a hotel adjacent to it, and that really is allowing well, absolutely 24/7 use of different space that's joined together. They've got beautiful spaces that have been converted from an old building, so they work for events as well as for meetings, and allow that full range of use. I think Fridays are clearly very tricky still. It's interesting to hear companies that have tried really hard to encourage people to come into the offices on a Friday with free breakfast or other initiatives. And I'm hearing that those are maybe not happening to the same extent. And defeat is being admitted that Fridays are just not going to become back to the days when people were in the office, and probably weren't pre-pandemic either, really. But there are, I think for some it works. It depends where you are in terms of city or town centre. But I think event programs generally are becoming increasingly popular. Looking outside, obviously, sort of office space can be used in different ways. One thing that we'd heard a lot going back was particularly during the pandemic, was how it was being used for filming, and we had Origin Workspace in Bristol had a number of high-profile BBC dramas filmed in their workspace, which was exciting to see on TV, that they were offices you'd been in, and I've heard of others since that have registered with location companies, and that allows out-of-hours usage, particularly at weekends. And it can be disruptive, but it's also something different, and a sort of talking point for customers as well. Other types of usage, I think, meeting rooms being used more casually, maybe once a month, by bigger companies that have got staff working from home but want to bring them together and can set those up as sort of very temporary office space. I think is still in use. And then also on less popular days, I think has been referenced already, using meeting rooms or other space, perhaps for charities or other non-commercial ways that is beneficial to those organisations, but on a positive for the operators, bring people into the building that might otherwise have not come in, see what's on offer, might come in as a paying customer. And then my final point was about discounting, and I wasn't so much thinking about office space, but those, whether to discount meeting rooms and co-working space on less popular days. And again, I'm hearing a real range of whether people are looking at doing that at all, or have tried it. I think again, it's going to depend where you are in location wise. The offers generally seem to be particularly on meeting rooms, maybe on quieter days of the week or in quieter times of the year. I was hearing of an operator that is looking in the run up to Christmas to discount meeting rooms because it is clearly a quieter period of time. And again, it allows promotion of the facilities for other times of year as well. So my concluding points were really going to be that flexible workspace is clearly flexible, and I think people are becoming increasingly imaginative about how it can be used. That there are endless ways of doing things, but it's definitely not a one size fits all. There's opportunities for everybody in different ways.
Lovely, and thank you for that. Just because we've got you here, how does the industry feel? You know, if this was a traditional landlord call webinar, it'd be very different. But how does the industry feel? What's the touch point you're getting? Is it mixed? Is it positivity but worried? You know, where are we?
I think it's mixed is the bottom line. I think it has been a tougher year for many than they might have hoped for. And that's clearly lots of businesses that would be looking to take space have also found it a tougher year. But occupancy rates seem to be pretty high generally. and that has to be a good sign for when that wider economic recovery comes, and perhaps some of that pricing recovers a bit more. But I think generally people are optimistic. There's lots of new locations being opened, lots of quite high-end workspace that looks akin to 5-star hotels and beautiful. So yeah, I think there is optimism, but it's been a challenging year.
Gotcha. Okay. And I seem to be picking up a major theme because we seem to all look up to kind of hotels and high-end hospitality quite a lot. I did have a meeting with the CTO of Hilton at one point who said they can't sell meeting rooms for love nor money. So we're at least doing better than that side of things in that particular area. Cool. So thank you, guys. I'm going to kick off the Q&A with a bit of a question from some of the data that we pick up as a company, NCG picks up. Our network, the network load. So this is the people working on the network, doing things on the network, sending emails, doing Teams calls, etc. Is lower on a Friday for corporate traffic than it is on a Saturday. So over to you guys. What's going on there? What is going on there? I think you had some thoughts, John. You're on mute, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, I've had some thoughts about this, and I've been thinking about this, but in the run up to this event and before. There is definitely some anecdotal evidence, and there's probably some good data somewhere that suggests that people are shifting towards doing part of their Friday workload on a Saturday morning. And I know anecdotally, I know a number of people, and this isn't sort of one or two. This is, you know, in the tens and towards 100 plus, who are regularly flipping a few hours on a Friday for, you know, filling in on a Saturday morning, and they do that because it suits their lifestyle, and that sort of would be supported by what you're seeing. What would be interesting is to look at a number of other networks, and actually, now you've mentioned it, we have access to it's a partner that provides our networking, and it'd be really interesting to see what they were seeing, and we could share that back with you at some point.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
That would be my
because we've got a good mixture of kind of light industrial which runs 24 hours a day, to then the flexible office side, and they're just great comparison to see what's going on there. Okay, cool. So there's a question here that we've got from anonymous, as they all are. Occupancy data. Apparently, John, they agree with you. It's vital. But the question here is around, is it desk sensors that should be used for this stuff that people don't always like because they feel tracked and followed? Or can it be done more subtly, as we kind of all know it can? You know, how do you guys do that? Do you even use occupancy data, or are you just engaging with the people as people via software platforms? How are you doing that?
Let me give you an analogy, which is, I would really like to run a taxi firm that knows where all its taxi drivers are, what they're doing, how many passengers are in every taxi, and whether or not those taxis are currently running. So do I need to put sensors in every taxi to do that?
No.
Or do I equip them all with an app they all want to use, because there's a value exchange in it, which actually implicitly shares that data? The key here, and this is where you have to continuously test and learn. The key here is if you say to people, would you like to be tracked? The answer is almost always universally, no, thank you. But if you say, in order for us to provide you with a better service while you're using this, you know, would you care to be tracked? That they may say yes. But even if they don't, the fact they're using the app and the fact that those two, you're basically systemically bringing together a person, a place, and an asset. And that's exactly what I'm talking about when I think of systemization of your inventory and your customers. And so if you're using a reservations engine, a meeting rooms booking system, then if you can start to encourage people to check into those spaces, then you don't really need the sensors. And so the sensors are really useful in helping understand information, but they also can be triggered by people who didn't have a booking and shouldn't be in the room, or actually are just maintenance. So there's the sensors are good at telling you if the space is in use at all, but bookings engine tells you about who specifically is there. And those two things can be brought together in a really successful way.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Question here for you, Jane. You made a point about different companies sharing the same space, and I'm imagining the questioner here is thinking about a fixed office, like in front of me here, two companies using that space. So there's NCG and then maybe a census come down and use the same office, right? How are we protected from each other in those spaces? Do enterprises can they even take that sort of risk as they see it? You know, are you seeing any successful, and I'm probably talking at the slightly larger level here, 30, 40, 50 desk sort of size of things. Are you seeing much success in that, of the sharing of space?
I think some are making it work. I mean, the reality is, for most of us, we have a laptop, we take it around with us. So it's not like we're leaving huge volumes, and you clearly can't in that situation leave lots of paperwork on your desk. It would need to be clear desk policy, but it gives you an empty space, a private space to use. So I think it's much more doable now than it would have been a few years ago, just because of the way we work, which is very much mobile technology.
Doable, but maybe slightly theoretical for big enterprise at this.
Absolutely. I think, yes. I mean, I think you're not talking the largest companies, but particularly that's going to work for this. It is the smaller ones that, it would like that facility of private space, but not necessarily paying for it 5 days a week if that's what they're really not going to use, and if they feel like they are willing to. There's downsides, aren't there? I mean, if you have your own private office, then you can leave things and have it like how you want, but it's choices to be made.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I thought that might be the case. So, Andrea, the points you two questions for you, one for myself. The turning the office into the wedding venue, because I'm going to use the most extreme example of what you used. Just talk us about that journey. And I know just giving it the name, the hideaway on the roof, etc. But I mean, it's great branding. But how much investment, time, and effort had to go into convincing people they're not getting married in an office? You know, as the most extreme example. Talk us through it if you could, without giving away too much.
They're not getting married in an office. And there are many instances that we're doing that. When I was working in the UK, we had a location in Reading. We coined it a weddings at Reading. And I just think that it's in that instance, it's all branding.
Yeah.
It is all branding at every single touch point. So from your wedding and events planners to the bride and groom, to all of the partners that are involved, to how you call the place, it is completely looking at you. And again, I never reinvent the wheel, right? In my opinion, there aren't that many new ideas, but there are just ideas executed better. And I always look for inspiration from categories and companies that do it well, give them credit, and then adapt. So what I would do is I would go on to, Venue Directory, right? Venue Directory is a great partner, or go onto your meeting room or event partner category, see who the best of the best, what the best of the best is doing, and adapt that to our category. But again, it has to be done at every single touch point. So we went as far as to create a whole separate website and a whole separate brand for our event spaces, so that the event spaces weren't commingled with the office brand.
Gotcha.
Meaning it has to start at the very first impression, layering down to pricing, layering down to how you convey the space. And the fact is that you have to use a little bit of window dressing, but clearly, when you're in the space. So that means an atrium, like a tent with flowers that you walk in, so that you're not being bombarded by an office building. It doesn't work in every location.
That's good. So that's okay. I gotcha. So, and you also mentioned the point further back about the about you thought people might buy direct from the website, and actually it was inquire and then tours. And just take me through the thinking of that kind of change. Why did you think it would work? And then we'll kind of talk through the story of why that changed. Would be great to know.
I dare say I never thought it would work. Here's the challenge. If we think about our own buying behavior, right? I have an American Express Platinum card. I'm also Diamond Medallion on Delta. At any moment, I could go online and I could self-fulfill, right? if I'm in the mood, if it's an easy booking, whatever. There are some instances where I'll research and I'll go online and I'll look and then I'll call. Yesterday I was on the phone with Delta. I had the seat that I wanted but I needed her help because I wanted to use a voucher to upgrade, whatever. Then the third instance is that you need a total assist. I've got no idea what I want. I want to take my family away and I'm clueless. I'm very bad at planning. The whole point is to meet the prospect or the customer or the human. I love, John, I talk about making a human to how we've gone from B2B to B2C to human. We are literally dealing with humans sitting in our seats every single day. And that is a transformational point in how we deal in our world. And so you have these humans who are making decisions and you need to meet them where they are. So the challenge is with a website is that you don't know who these people are, and you're meeting them typically very far up the sales funnel. They've Googled, in my world, almost 90% of inquiries and 85% of all revenue comes online. But we're driving them in via channels, and they're coming and they don't know who you are. They're making a purchase decision that they've never made online before. And so you have to give them options. So number one, you have to have a chat bot, and the chat bot shouldn't be a human. It should be a rules-driven chat bot that drives it off to a human so they can engage with you on that way. And you need to be able to have them engage with you how they want. Do they want to book now? Probably not. So I'd put that call to action a little bit lower. And the main call to action should be, let's connect.
Great. Okay. So we're almost there. Very last question for me. I think we've got an understanding this work is now hybrid times, although we've agreed to Tuesday to Thursday is probably where everyone's working, although there are arguments that we were there already, which Jane made very well. But is the other side of hybrid location, as in people picking up and they're coming to London one day and they're going to look at Liverpool to is that bit real? The other bit, I think the timing we get, I just remember having a really interesting conversation with you, Andrea, once that you were trying to sell an IWG global pass and it was used 0% of the time. And sorry to keep coming back to you, but Jane, have you got an industry view on that? Is the location thing an actual real attribute?
Yeah,
I
one
could
of the
say
things.
that really. Oh, go ahead, Jane. Sorry.
One of the things I found interesting this year is hearing where people are going to stay in, so Edinburgh for the Edinburgh Festival, and there was a large co-working space there that found that their business was picking up for people that were wanting somewhere professional to work alongside going to the Edinburgh Festival at Devon in the southwest of England, for people going for a long weekend but wanting to tack onto that some working days, so buying a day pass to co-working space. So I think that it's not just the moving around from place to place, which I mean I definitely do a lot of. I know my office day to day is in Hertfordshire, but I'm frequently in London. I'm fortunate in being able to access other workspaces relatively easily, and I'm laptop goes with me, and I work on the train and I work in different places. And I think most people are now pretty adept at just working where they want to and where they need to.
The train is pretty hard to work on. Let's put it that way.
I'm pretty good at it. I'm well practiced.
The Wi-Fi is awful.
The Wi-Fi is terrible.
It's so bad.
I will answer that question very briefly in that you're right. 20 years ago, we launched the Regis IWG Global Membership Card, launched it twice, actually. We put it, I knew we had to get it off the property pages, so we actually got editorial on the front page of the travel section of USA Today. Okay, where did that go? Not too far. Fact is, at that time, right? It really was like a pebble dropping in the Atlantic, right? Because the idea was, yes, we have this global network. You can work, a sight unseen in Azerbaijan or Atlanta. Great talking point. Nobody used it. No one used it. Now it's a must-have. Really, whether it's a part of your own network or whether it's a part of somebody else's network, you look at Dasana, look at all these companies working from multiple places, close to home, close to customer, close to your festival travel is key. And also, as you're looking to expand and put dots on the map, which I am, and I'm talking to landlords and asset owners, a huge value point for them is that they will now be a part of a larger network that their tenants can go into. So it's critically important, this whole network effect right now.
And John, you're from an operator's point of view, just give us the last thought.
Yeah, it does support that hypothesis about Friday working, right? If you're traveling or you're somewhere else, then that interrupts your day to a degree. But I do think, and this is a really important point, which is even if you have the best network, and IWG is one of the sort of, it's probably the global leader in terms of a most integrated network, it still has nothing that will cover what one individual may want everywhere. So the future here is definitely going to involve a lot more partnerships and networking and collaboration, which ultimately leads to being able to drop into multiple places if we all want to benefit. Otherwise, we just all compete with each other at low levels in micro locations, which actually in some cases is counterproductive.
Which means we're heading for a big software marketplace type play. There's going to be a big player there. A few of
100%.
those are going to emerge. Yeah,
I think that's inevitable. Yes, it's
Inevitable.
where all
officesupermarket.com, one of those types. Okay, interesting. All right. Well, on that point, thank you very much, guys. We almost got to the time. Any final points from anyone? If not, I'm going to say thank you all for that. Been really, really interesting. Good list of things to tick off for any operators out there. Thank you, guys, and we're going to leave it at that. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for attending.
Thanks everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.